Before your alarm goes off, the city is already awake. Not the city you see, the one with office workers stepping onto sidewalks, parents loading kids into SUVs, school buses blinking red, coffee shops steaming, traffic thickening. That city wakes up around you. But another city wakes up before you, the one behind the morning, the one that moves in the dark. At 3:47 in the morning, while most bedroom windows are still black, a delivery truck is backing into a grocery loading dock behind a strip mall in suburban Ohio. At 4:12, someone is pulling trays from an oven in a bakery in Queens. At 4:30, a sanitation truck is working a neighborhood while the porch lights are still on their timers. At 4:45, a nurse is walking into a hospital parking garage with coffee in one hand and a badge in the other. At 5:03, a train operator is preparing, and at 6 o'clock, the power grid begins to feel an entire country stir. Water heaters, coffee makers, bathroom lights, furnaces, all switching on at once. And you are still asleep. This is the first secret of the morning. Your day does not begin when you wake up. Your day begins hours earlier, when a hidden machine starts preparing the world to receive you. The modern morning feels intensely personal. Your alarm, your shower, your coffee, your commute. But underneath that private ritual runs a vast public machine, and a city does not wake up on its own. It is started. Every morning across America, the same quiet miracle happens. The system performs normal. And normal turns out to be one of the most complicated things a civilization ever has to build. Over and over, before dawn, every single day. Think about how a toaster, a traffic signal, a hospital elevator, a subway turnstile, a gas pump, a school kitchen oven, a refrigerated case in a grocery store, a street light going dark as a traffic light takes over the job of managing the day, a delivery route beginning, a coffee shop unlocking its front door. None of these is dramatic on its own. Together, they are a startup sequence the size of a metropolis. And the very first thing many people touch is the most invisible system of all. Before their feet hit the floor, they reach for a phone, and they are already deep inside infrastructure. The screen lights up because electricity arrived overnight. The signal connects because a network of towers, cables, and data centers never stopped working. The weather app loads. The alarm. We like to imagine the digital morning as weightless and magical. But the magic is just infrastructure you cannot see, humming in wires, towers, batteries, and buildings full of machines, all kept running through the night by people you will never meet. Then comes water. A faucet runs, a shower starts, a coffee pot fills, a toilet flushes, and nobody gives it a thought. That is the entire point. The water arrives as if gravity and pressure were a personal service, when in fact it is public infrastructure passing straight through your home, and you are standing, half awake, inside the city's hidden circulatory system. If it failed, the morning would collapse in minutes. No shower, no coffee, no flushing, no restaurant. The faucet runs. The city continues. And then there is coffee, which may be the most American way ever invented to disguise infrastructure as a personality trait. People say they need coffee to wake up, but the coffee needed an entire civilization to wake up first. 2/3 of American adults now drink coffee every single day, the highest rate in 20 years, and enough that coffee has overtaken even tap water as the country's most common daily beverage. Together, Americans drink on the order of 500 million cups a day. 500 million, every morning. Now think about what stands behind a single one of those cups. The beans were grown on another continent, shipped. The cup was manufactured, the lid molded, the card reader connected to a banking network, the espresso machine cleaned, and the worker behind the counter woke up earlier than everyone they are about to serve. All of them people who say they cannot function without coffee. A morning cup feels like the smallest, most personal choice a person makes. At the scale of a country, it is a daily, invisible act of choreography involving agriculture, shipping, dairy, refrigeration, packaging, electricity, water, real estate, labor, and habit. The cup is tiny. The system behind it is almost unimaginably large. This is the pattern that will repeat all morning long. Behind every small, private, ordinary act, before that store can look abundant, the food has to arrive. And the place it comes from is one of the most astonishing things in any city, precisely because almost no one ever sees it. In the South Bronx, on a peninsula of about 330 acres, sits the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center, the largest wholesale food hub in the country, and by many measures, the largest in the world. It is where a huge share of New York's food passes through in the dark. By some accounts, around a quarter of the city's produce, a third of its. While the city sleeps, the produce market alone takes in hundreds of tractor-trailer loads of fruit and vegetables every single day of the year, hauled in from dozens of states and dozens of countries. California strawberries, mangoes from South America, boxes from farms whose names no shopper will ever read. Inside, well over 1,000 workers move through the cold under floodlights, packing and loading cases at a furious pace, so that smaller trucks, by the time you pick up a tomato at 9 a.m., it may have already traveled through that market in the middle of the night, passed through hands you will never shake, and ridden a second truck to your neighborhood while you were still asleep. Nearly every city has its own version of this: a wholesale market, a cluster of distribution centers, a ring of warehouses near the highway, working through the night so that morning can look effortless. The abundance we take for granted during our waking hours is, quite literally, manufactured while we sleep. The fully stocked shelf is not the start of the food's journey. It is the last few feet of a marathon that ran all night, in the dark, so that the morning could pretend the food was simply always there. Ever worked an early or overnight? Aisles full, produce misted and glistening, milk stocked, bread warm, the meat case cold. Everything faced neatly forward, as if it simply grows that way overnight. It does not. A grocery store cannot be allowed to feel like a warehouse, even though that is essentially what it is. So behind the calm runs a constant replenishment machine that mostly operates before the public is allowed to see it. Trucks back in before dawn. Pallets move. Forklifts beep. Boxes are cut open. Shelves restocked. Expired items pulled. Temperatures checked. Inventory counted. The store is made presentable before the first customer ever touches a cart. And that reveals one of the most important divisions in all of modern life. The customer sees a clean, abundant, effortless store. The loading dock sees pallets, invoices, broken boxes, forklifts, cardboard, refrigeration, and a delivery schedule that has to be hit no matter what. Every morning, commerce enters through the back, in bulk and in chaos, and is quietly rearranged into the illusion of effortless availability out front. The truck you never saw was the real beginning of your shopping trip. Around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, the roads themselves begin to change character, and if you watch closely, you can see the morning arrive in two distinct waves. The first wave belongs to the people who work so that other people can work. Bakers and nurses, warehouse workers and people whose entire job is to prepare the day for everyone else, and who therefore have to be finished, or nearly finished, by the time the second wave even opens its eyes. Then the second wave begins. Office workers, teachers, parents, students, delivery vans, School buses. The road turns into a shared argument, with everyone trying to arrive somewhere at the same narrow slice of time. The morning commute is not just transportation. It is a daily stress test of the entire society's design. And a country that built so much of its life around the car has to restart that whole system, from cold, every single morning. And it works because of people almost no one is thinking about. The signal technician, the tow operator clearing a stall before it becomes a mile of backup, the crew that filled a pothole before it caused a crash. A city morning runs on thousands of small interventions that quietly keep inconvenience from tipping over into breakdown. Somewhere in that first wave, there is a light on in a diner. Not the trendy brunch place that opens at 10, the real one, off a state road, with vinyl booths, bottomless coffee, laminated menus, a pie case, and regulars who never have to say their order. At 5:30, the grill is already hot. The bacon is going, the coffee is brewed, the hash browns are down. And through the door come the people who hold up the early hours. Truckers, cops, nurses coming off a night shift, contractors. It is a kind of transfer station for human energy. A place where people arrive depleted and leave able to continue. The short order cook is part of the morning's infrastructure. So is the dishwasher, and the server who already has the coffee poured before the regular reaches the booth, and the driver who dropped off the eggs at 4, and the crew that kept the power on overnight, and the road that let everyone arrive. This is what the channel's title really points at. The system that holds up an ordinary morning is not only pipes and wires and trucks. It is human routines, small, warm, repeated acts of competence. Quietly making the yellow school bus is so familiar, it has almost disappeared into nostalgia. The color, the stop sign arm, the blinking red lights, the line of cars waiting behind it, the kid climbing the steps under a backpack too big for their body. But step back and look at the scale. Roughly 480,000 yellow school buses go out across the United States every school day, carrying around 25 million children. It is, by a wide margin, the largest mass transit system in the entire country, bigger than every subway and city bus network combined. Together, those buses cover something like 6 billion miles a year, and almost no one thinks of it as transit at all. Before a single child climbs aboard, the bus has already had its own morning. The driver is not just driving. They are managing time, traffic, weather, children, parents, and a promise made to every family on the route. Your child will be picked up, will get to school, and will come home. It is one of the most delicate pieces of morning infrastructure in existence because of what it carries. And watch what it does to the world around it. When those red lights flash and the stop arm swings out, traffic stops. For a moment, the entire impatient commute yields to a single child crossing the road. That too is infrastructure. Not the bus, but the rule around the bus. The shared, almost unconscious agreement that everyone will halt because the system is protecting a child. Which points to something easy to miss about a city morning. It is not only made of machines, it is made of agreements. Stop here. Yield, move to the right on the escalator. Board at this door. Pay at that one. Line up. Scan the badge. Clock in. Every morning, millions of people obey hundreds of tiny rules that make shared movement possible. Most of them without thinking, many of them with no one watching. We tend to picture civilization as steel and concrete, as pipes and wires and pavement. But just as much, it is behavior. It is a vast, invisible web of cooperation between strangers who will never meet. Consider how much of your morning depends on trusting the work of people you do not know. You drink the water without testing it. You eat food prepared by hands you never saw. You drive through a green light trusting that the cross traffic has a red. You put your child on a bus driven by someone you met for 30 seconds. The city works because strangers reliably follow systems built by other strangers. And that quiet, daily mutual trust is one of the great achievements of modern life, precisely because almost no one notices they are performing it. Some parts of the city do not wake up in the morning at all, because they never fully sleep. They just change hands. A hospital does not open. It hands off. Around 6:30 or 7 o'clock, in hospitals across the country, one exhausted workforce passes the building to another. Night nurses report to day nurses. Doctors begin rounds. Lab samples move. Pharmacy orders continue. Cleaning crews turn over rooms. The kitchen prepares hundreds of breakfasts. A hospital is a city inside the city, and its morning is one of the most complex transitions in ordinary life. It runs on electricity and backup power, on water and medical oxygen, on elevators, sterilization, laundry, food service, waste disposal, electronic records, pharmacy supply chains, and on hundreds of people arriving on time through the same traffic everyone else is cursing. When a nurse reaches the floor before dawn, that commute is part of the healthcare system. When the laundry truck arrives, that is infection control. When the food delivery reaches the kitchen, that is patient care. The public pictures hospitals through doctors and patients, but underneath that visible layer runs an enormous, hidden support system, and it has been running all night, so that the morning can simply continue. Air security lines form before sunrise because people are catching 6 a.m. flights. The Transportation Security Administration screens well over 2 million passengers on an ordinary day, a flow of humanity larger than most American cities, funneled through checkpoints that have to be staffed, calm, and moving before most of the country has stirred. Coffee shops open early, baggage systems start, fuel trucks service aircraft, cleaning crews finish cabins, catering lifts thousands of meals into galleys, ground crews guide planes in the dark, pilots and flight attendants move through their own employee security, having woken in a hotel in a city that is not their home. A passenger standing at the gate sees travel. Behind that travel, the gate has to be assigned, the fuel loaded, the bags loaded, the catering finished, the maintenance checks cleared, the passengers boarded, the jet bridge pulled back, the pushback sequenced by ground control, the weather cooperating. And every step is timed, which makes the whole thing beautifully fragile. A late aircraft becomes a late crew. A late crew becomes a delayed departure. A delayed departure becomes a missed connection 3 states away. This is the deepest rule of the morning machine, stated plainly. The customer's beginning is almost always someone else's middle. The traveler's journey starts at the gate. For the system, the gate is the end of a long night's work that started while they were asleep. There is one more kind of hidden morning work, and it is perhaps the most invisible of all. Office trash emptied. Floors mopped. Bathrooms restocked. Hospital rooms disinfected. School hallways swept. Airport terminals vacuumed. Hotel lobbies reset. A clean public space does not occur in nature. It is labor. Labor that has been deliberately scheduled out of sight, usually into the night, so that the people who use the space experience cleanliness as a permanent condition, rather than as an event that someone performed. In most American offices, the people who clean the building work after the people who use it have gone home, which means the morning worker arrives to a vacuumed floor, an emptied bin, a wiped glass door, a restocked restroom. It quietly erases the evidence of one day before the next day begins, so that every morning the world can pretend, convincingly, that yesterday left no mark at all. Underneath every one of these systems is the one that almost all the others secretly depend on. Electricity. The power grid does not experience morning as a sunrise. It experiences it as a rising line on a graph. As a country wakes, demand climbs. Lights, heating and cooling, elevators, transit, water pumps, ovens, chargers. All switching on across millions of homes and buildings in the same few hours. And here is the part that makes it remarkable. At large scale, electricity is not really stored, sitting in the wall waiting for your lamp. Generation and demand have to be matched, continuously, in real time. So the morning ramp is what it means. Your private routine is a measurable part of a national pattern. Your single coffee maker is nothing. Millions of coffee makers switching on within the same hour are a signal the grid can see. Your bathroom light is meaningless. Millions of bathroom lights are a wave. The grid, in a real sense, feels the country become conscious each morning and quietly rises to carry it. And because nearly everything else leans on it, electricity is the silent assumption hidden inside every other assumption. The water pumps need it, the trains need it, the hospital, the grocery case, the traffic light, the cell tower, the warehouse, the coffee shop, all of it. When the grid works, every other system gets to appear independent. Only when it fails do they suddenly reveal that they were all, the whole time, members of the same family. A city does not wake up the same way in clear skies as it does in snow, heat, fog, wildfire smoke, or freezing rain. In Minneapolis, a winter morning begins with plows and salt trucks, and school delay decisions, and frozen door locks, and buses fighting to stay on schedule. In Phoenix, a summer workday may start before dawn, because by afternoon, the outdoor work becomes dangerous. In Houston, a heavy rain can turn an underpass into a trap, and a school commute into a gamble. The morning machine is never separate from the environment. It is always negotiating with it. A clear morning simply hides the negotiation. A bad one exposes it. Snow reveals it happened because plow drivers worked through the night, because salt was stockpiled in advance, because trucks were maintained, and, most revealingly, because someone, long before the storm, decided the order in which the city would be saved. Hospitals first, then the main arteries, then the bus routes and the roads to schools, residential streets last. That priority list is not an accident, and it is not really an engineering decision. It is a quiet statement of values, a ranking of what a community cannot afford to lose access to first. Snow removal is an ethical map disguised as an operations plan, and it is one more reminder that infrastructure is never only machines. It is also priorities, decisions about who gets. Why does a city have to wake up like this? In a frantic, compressed, all-at-once surge. Why not spread it out? Because modern life is synchronized. Schools begin at a set time. Flights depart at a set time. Shifts change, markets open, offices open, stores unlock, courts convene, all clustered into the same narrow window. And that synchronization turns the morning into something genuinely difficult, in a way the rest of the day is not. People do not need water eventually. They need it now, at 6:45, all of them together. They do not need the roads eventually. They need them between 7 and 9. They do not need the trains, the coffee, the school buses, the elevators eventually. They need them all at once, in the same surge. They have to work under peak load, all together, at the exact hour when everyone needs normal simultaneously. And it is also why a small failure in the morning feels so much larger than the same failure in the afternoon. At 2 in the afternoon, a stalled train or a dark traffic signal is an annoyance, absorbed by the slack in the day. At 7:45 in the morning, the same failure can reorder everything, because there is no slack. Everyone is moving, Everyone is timed, and everyone is exposed to the same fragile minutes. A late bus makes a parent late, which makes them late to a job where a shift is waiting. The morning has the least room for error and the highest number of people depending on it at once. It is the system at full stretch, every day, pretending to be effortless. And here the story turns, because the morning machine. Some people wake up with options: a car and a train and a flexible start time and a boss who does not count the minutes. Others wake up with exactly one route, and if that route fails, the whole day fails with it. A remote worker experiences a delayed train as a minor irritation. A nurse on a shift change experiences it as a crisis. A salaried professional stuck in traffic and an hourly hotel cleaner whose supervisor logs her clock-in time are sitting in the same jam, living two completely different mornings. When the bus route gets cut, the job gets harder to reach. When the car will not start, the paycheck is suddenly at risk. The same delay is an inconvenience for one person and a genuine threat for another. And there is a deeper unfairness woven through the whole thing. Many of the people who wake the city are not they stock the stores before the shoppers arrive, move the food they will not sit down to enjoy, and ready the offices for people whose names are on the doors. They leave dark apartments while the rest of the world sleeps, so that daylight will feel easy for someone else. None of this makes the system evil. It makes it human. Built by tired bodies, on early shifts, doing physical work that vanishes the instant it is done well. And human systems, especially the ones we have trained ourselves not to see, deserve at least to be seen. If the morning has so little room for error, then someone has to create room when things go wrong. And they do. There is an entire hidden workforce whose real job is to absorb failure before it spreads. The tow operator who clears a wreck before a fender bender becomes 3 miles of gridlock. The signal technician opening a cabinet at a dark intersection. The building engineer restarting a dead boiler before the tenants arrive. The hospital coordinator finding coverage for a shift that suddenly came up short. The grocery manager on the phone about a truck that did not come. These are the shock absorbers of the morning. They almost never become stories because the whole point of their work is that nothing happens. The delay stays small, the failure stays local, the day stays ordinary. It is not heroism with dramatic music. It is something quieter and arguably rarer: competence under pressure, repeated daily, for the specific purpose of keeping a disruption from becoming a collapse. When they succeed, the rest of the city never learns there was anything to succeed. When the morning goes perfectly, when the water runs, the train comes, the shelves are full, the lights work, the bus arrives on time, whom, exactly, are you supposed to thank? The driver? The dispatcher who routed the driver? The mechanic who kept the bus alive? The engineer who designed the system? The night shift worker who handed off a functioning city at dawn? The person who tightened a particular bolt 10 years ago? The crew that replaced a pump the week before it would have failed? The answer is that the work is too distributed for gratitude to find a target. There is no single face behind a normal morning. There are thousands of them, scattered across shifts and depots and control rooms and tunnels, most of whom will never know which and that is the final, strange achievement of the hidden machine. It works so well and so invisibly that it erases its own authors. Success for these systems means becoming unnoticed. The reward for a morning made perfectly is that no one ever wonders who made it. Lay a single American morning out on a clock, and the shape of the hidden city becomes impossible to miss. At 3:15, a bakery truck pulls out of a distribution center. By 3:40, a sanitation crew is already working a route. At 4:05, a night nurse gives medication on a quiet ward while the neighborhood sleeps. At 4:30, a warehouse shift changes near an interstate interchange in a building with no windows. At 4:45, the produce trucks are unloading. At 5 o'clock, a coffee shop worker unlocks a door. At 5:10, a train operator walks the length of a platform. At 5:55, a diner grill heats up. At 6 o'clock, water demand begins to climb and the power grid feels the first real surge of the day. By 6:15, parents are waking children. By 6:30, the first yellow buses are stopping at corners. By 6:45, the highways are thickening. At 7 o'clock, hospitals change shifts, office towers power up, and airport security lines grow. And by 7:30, the city finally looks awake. Looks, to the people just stepping out their front doors, like it is only now beginning. But the work began hours earlier. By the time the average person stretches and says, "My day is starting," the hidden city has already completed half a shift. That is the quiet, almost unsettling center of this whole story. Your morning is the product of other people's earlier morning, sometimes much earlier, sometimes a morning that was really the tail end of someone else's night. Maybe you hit snooze, check your phone, complain that you are tired, and shuffle toward the bathroom. The water runs. The lights work. The toilet flushes. The coffee brews. The phone connects. The road outside is clear enough. The bus arrives. The train is running. The store has milk. The hospital is staffed. The trash from yesterday is already gone. The city feels ready. And because it feels ready, you will probably never ask who made it that way. That is not a failure of gratitude. It is the design working as intended. The machine normal is a shift change, a route, a checklist, a pump holding pressure, a driver arriving on time, a worker unlocking a door in the dark, a grid quietly rising to meet a country it cannot see. Normal is a hospital that never slept, and a store that emptied 100 boxes before you arrived, and a bus that was inspected before the sun came up. Normal is a city carefully pretending that the morning began the moment you opened your eyes. It did not. It began hours earlier, in the dark, with people you did not see, in places you will never visit, doing work that disappears the instant it succeeds. And tomorrow it will happen again, before the alarm, before the shower, before the hidden city will already be awake. Moving water, clearing yesterday, baking bread, fueling trucks, stocking shelves, running trains, changing shifts, balancing power, readying hospitals, guiding flights, cleaning rooms, repairing whatever broke in the night. The world works because someone keeps it working, and if they do their job well, you will never notice. You will grab your coffee, start the car, catch the train, walk into work, drop off the kids, and call it a perfectly ordinary morning. But behind that ordinary beginning is another beginning. Earlier, darker, quieter, more physical. The one that belongs to the people and the systems that made yours possible. That is the world behind the everyday. The part of the city that keeps moving before you ever look at it. And somewhere out there right now, before sunrise, it is already still running.